All right. Thanks for joining us today, Andrew.
Hey guys, appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, dude. Back to the old FBLA days, the old
Yeah,
crew.
yeah,
Yeah, dude.
yep,
I
yep.
was thinking. So, what was the name of that FBLA team that you were a part of that you went to nationals with?
The FBLA team, we actually had a business plan, and it was based around reselling custom shoes and apparel. It was called First Street Apparel, and so we had pretty much had a business. We didn't actually have the business, but it was a business plan revolving around like custom items and custom clothing and everything like that.
Okay. What was the name of like the category that you guys were in?
It was the personal business plan, I believe.
Personal
So
business
that is
plan.
what, yeah, that's what we did on that.
Yeah, and you guys went pretty well at nationals, didn't you?
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
we were. I believe we were 14th in the nation. Whenever we got to like the final presentation, we couldn't get our computer hooked up to the screen,
Oh no.
so I think it kind of messed up our opportunity.
All right.
But yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and get into it today. So, why don't you start out by telling me, like, and telling everyone who's listening, like, a little bit about who you are and like what
Hmm.
hustles you currently have.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So my name's Andrew Sweet, and I go to Missouri State University. I'm a junior, and I'm studying finance and corporate investments. And ever since like high school, like freshman year, I've been really involved in reselling shoes or like clothing, like finding stuff from Ross or like Plato's Closet, stuff like that. Anywhere where I could kind of make money on a flip or anything like that. So that was honestly probably my biggest business that I'd kind of started up for myself. It's just finding deals, reselling, trying to make some money. I was in cross country. I played football for a year. So I didn't really leave a lot of time for like a physical job. So I was trying to figure out, kind of just side hustles and stuff like that just to, make ends meet. Obviously didn't have a ton of expenses, but I wanted some extra, spending money whenever I wanted to do stuff. And then more recently, I've gotten into cards as a flip. Instead of shoe, I do it alongside shoes, but it's kind of morphing into almost all cards at this point.
Yeah, Ian was telling me that you have like a pretty extensive inventory when it comes to cards. How much is your
Hmm.
inventory worth right now?
Our inventory right now is worth about $75,000 in sealed boxes that we have right now of cards.
That's awesome, dude. So, you say ours is this something that you're in with a partner?
Uh-huh. Yeah, actually, well, my dad got me into cards originally a few months ago because him and my mom used to resell them at card shows and stuff like that. He was really into baseball cards. And more recently, we're watching NFL games. We're really big Chiefs fans, so we're watching all these games, seeing Patrick Mahomes play, and so we want to just pick up some boxes just to see if we could get some of his rookie cards or anything like that. And as we started, we kind of saw that it could be potentially profitable. So me and him kind of went in 50-50 as like a little partnership, just for fun. So something me and my dad could do for fun, and then it's kind of blown up into a full scale business we're running.
How did you migrate to cards after shoes? Was that just kind of like a natural process of being in like a resale community type thing?
Yeah, a little bit. I think when I was following a dude on Instagram who has a huge sneaker reselling shop, P Town Kicks, and I was
Mhm.
watching his stuff, and he actually ended up starting to do like live videos, selling cards on his stream, all that sort of thing. So I kind of started watching that. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then whenever I was seeing like the prices he was charging for boxes, I was kind of seeing this could be a pretty lucrative business to get into. So I that he kind of got me into it. I don't think he's really doing much cards anymore, but initially he kind of piqued my interest and kind of got me looking into cards more than I was obviously before.
And for your boxes, can you like kind of say like how you secure everything? Is it like going to Target's early morning? Is it botting?
Hmm.
Is it?
It's a combination because there are certain boxes that release every week at either Target or Walmart are your two places you're going to find a lot of your boxes. And obviously, just like shoes or just like anything else, Panini, which is like the overall card making company that owns pretty much all cards of value. So they have like Panini, and then they'll have a bunch of subgroups like the Panini Select cards or Panini Prism cards or Panini
Mhm.
Mosaic, something like that. And it's all just like different subgroups and different card categories, pretty much. So Panini will release certain types of cards in like Walmart stores or Target stores every week. And so if you can figure out the stock times, because these boxes usually sell for like at least 3 times your money. So everybody's looking for them. And there's people, waiting in Walmart all day, and it's a mess. So a lot of people try to figure out when the card vendors are going to show up to the store. Because if you figure out when they come to the store, obviously you're going to get a lot of the stock, which I haven't really been super successful at. I've done it a lot and tried it. But a lot of what I do now is just I go to the kind of the resale market and pay a little bit more of a premium just so I can, secure the boxes and have them in my inventory.
Sure. And then just hold.
Yeah. So it's a combination for me. So my business is pretty much based around so I'll do Instagram live videos and say I have, $1,000 box of cards. And if you're just a guy on the street and you don't want to go out and spend $1,000 on a box of cards, but you still want the cards from that type of box, for instance, I'll split the box up into I'll do 10 spots, and everybody spends like $100 a spot. And instead of getting the whole box, they'll get, for the NBA at least, they'll get 3 random teams because there's 30 teams. So they'll get 3 random teams. So say you get the Pelicans, which Zion's the big player on the Pelicans.
Right.
If you get the Pelicans as one of your random teams, all the Pelicans cards from that box belong to you pretty much. So it's like a value way to get into a super expensive box of cards that you wouldn't normally, be able to afford on your own, and still potentially get some nice hits from it.
And then you just have to send those cards out to those people after you rip
Right.
it. Okay.
Right. So I'll go on my Instagram live, and then you can, usually I'll just fill it on the live so people will join my live. And then I'll have, my lists of whatever boxes I'm, doing that night. And then people can comment spots just through the Instagram chat, comment spots. I'll write them down. And then I take payment via PayPal, Cash App, Venmo, whatever people, need. And then after everybody's paid up, I will open the box, and then people just send me their address afterwards. And then I send their cards out to them.
Cool.
So let me get this right. You're purchasing the box for like $1,000, you said?
Well, there's a bunch of different boxes with a bunch of different prices. That was just kind of an example, but yeah. So a lot of the boxes, the high end boxes, like these are boxes you can't find at Walmart type stores. I've secured a couple deals and stuff with not third party suppliers, but suppliers that get stock directly from Panini, pretty much like their wholesale kind of. And so I get in contact with these guys. So then if I get a box maybe for $1,000 and the market for the box is $1,400, obviously right there, I have a little bit of a markup. And I also have a partial markup because whenever you're splitting it 10 ways, even if the overall price of the box is technically higher, people are still willing to get into it because, even if they spend $120, and I make, $1,200, so $200 profit on $1,000 box, it's still worth it to them because they're not shelling out, they're not shelling out the full amount. So that's kind of an incentive for that.
Sure. And so essentially it's like buying in bulk and then selling in smaller quantities. And
pretty much.
And the incentive then for the person that's buying the 1/10 of the box, and they're trying to buy a specific teams.
Right.
What is their hope with it? Is their hope that they're going to spend $120 and then hope to get a certain type of card that's worth, and that ends up making them money?
Yeah. So pretty much how it works in these boxes is typically, you're going to want, at least every single box has a different rookie class pretty much. So a lot of the boxes I have are for the 1920 NBA rookie class. So the really good rookies are like Zion, Ja Morant, Tyler Hero, those kind of guys. And those guys hold a really good amount of value. So pretty much people are wanting to get, if you got a really nice Zion card, it might be worth $4,000. So if you get into a break for $120, and obviously there's no guarantee, but if you hit a card like that, you're going to 40 times your 35 times your money right there. And as opposed to if you went out and bought $1,000, you paid $1,000 for the box and you hit that same Zion, you're still going to be making money, but you're only going to be 4 timesing your money instead of, 35 timesing your money pretty much.
And from a business model standpoint, you doing the pack breaks like on your IG live is basically like what gets you cash flow continually among like while also holding packs over time, right? Okay.
Right. So I kind of have a combination with that. I have a pretty steady stream of cash flow. I try to go live at least over the weekend. Obviously with college classes, I'm a little more busy, but that is kind of the nature of this business. That's nice for me because since these boxes, as these players are actually playing and performing well, their card prices go up, and therefore the boxes are going to be appreciating and going up too, alongside the card prices. So that's a good thing for me because if I sell the boxes every week, I obviously have more cash flow to reinvest into more boxes. And if I don't sell them, usually the box price by the next week is going to be higher than it was the week before. So it's kind of a win-win. It just, however I can make it work with my schedule.
And you're also are you still doing sneakers and selling Supreme stuff on the side?
Yeah, I am not as heavily. I've kind of shifted more to just cards, but I'm still involved with all those reselling groups. And I have a bot for Supreme stuff whenever it's in season. So I don't necessarily invest as much of my time in that, but I mean, whenever I see limited drops and stuff, I'll try for it also.
And that was really where you got into all this reselling stuff, right? It was with like Supreme.
Yeah. Supreme and like Yeezy drops. That was kind of how I got into it.
And how did you get into how did you discover that and kind of learn the process of that whole thing?
Well, originally, since I was a runner, I really liked wearing Adidas Ultra Boost. I thought they were super comfortable and they were awesome. In the stores, they were $180. And I was like, man, a lot of these guys, they're not able to spend, $180 on sneakers. So I just started trying to make connections and try to find ways to get them, under market, whether it be, sales at outlets or whatever, finding them for wholesale or anything like that. And I wanted to try to still sell them under market, but at a margin where I'm still making money. So if I could maybe try to snag them for $90 a piece, for instance, and I could sell them for $120 a piece, I'm still making a markup and the person's still saving money off retail price. So it was kind of a win-win. So I kind of got into it partly because of that and partly because I wanted to keep getting these shoes for myself at a relatively low price.
And then like, as far as the process of like understanding how to go about that, did you do like bots for that stuff, or were you like following groups that were just like retweeting like restock links or special offers, stuff like that?
A lot of it was, following groups that posted special offers and stuff like that. There's a few Instagram pages that do off the top. I think Sneaker Steals is one. There's a few others. But that was a big part of it too, is with the early links they were giving. And then whenever I got into the reselling group I'm in now, alerts.io, that really helped too, because then everything's kind of at the palm of your hand and you have all those links, in categories and channels on the page. And then instead of having an avenue to look on Instagram and having a different page you try to watch on Twitter, you have all those links in one place, and it just kind of, makes it more concise and easy to navigate.
And that's on Discord?
Yeah, that's a Discord group.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had FL on the podcast a few weeks ago, and he's a 16-year-old who's actually working on a bot that is able to get limited edition stuff from, like, I think Panini was one of them, wasn't it, Brian?
Yeah, Panini Tops, like basically
awesome.
just card sites and then retail. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had no idea what that Panini was until you just said it. I didn't realize that was the card shop. So, he was saying one of the best ways he would recommend younger people that were wanting to get into the reselling sneaker game. One of the best things to do to start would be to join a group. And would you agree with that?
I think there's aspects to both of it, like going on your own and joining a group. I think joining groups really, it's really good to join groups, because if you want to hold stuff long term, you have a lot of people giving you advice on to hold it or to sell it. And if you decide to sell it and you're in a big group of people, typically if there's like a limited drop of, boxes or something, not everybody in your group's going to get them. And more than likely you're going to have some buyers for your product, like right then and there, pretty much. So if you want to sell quick, it's good to be in a group. And obviously if you want to hold your stuff, you're going to typically have advice from the people. But going individually obviously is a little better. It could be better because if there's a really limited drop that not many people know about, you don't want 500 other people from your group going for it if you're wanting to really zero in and get a bunch of, quantity and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then do you see a lot of people like starting out in this industry? Do you see like a lot of people that are fairly young, like a lot of college student, high school students in this industry?
Yeah, I would say, I'd say there's a lot of kids who are, 25 and younger in this industry, because I think a lot of them are really incentivized by the quick flip aspect, because like I was saying earlier, some of these people who wait outside of Walmart for like restocks or anything like that. I mean, if you really hit a nice restock and get a majority of the boxes, you might profit $1,500 in a day, and you could probably liquidate that within 24 hours pretty easily. So like there's a lot of money involved with it. So it brings obviously a large crowd of people.
Do you think that like a business model of kind of what you're doing is just like superior to like buying these at retail and then just ripping packs, hoping for cards? Because I know a lot of people just rip like just to gamble,
Right.
But some people actually make good money doing that. Is there pros and cons to either side?
So when I first started out, I was opening everything I got. So I don't know how much we got, maybe $1,000 worth of retail and some other stuff from like resale people. And we ripped a bunch of stuff, and we were probably pretty close. I mean, we made money, and you can also get cards graded, which I can talk about a little later, which also increases your profitability. But we made money, but personally, I didn't like the risk of, hey, I'm going to open this $500 box. Maybe I'll do well, maybe I won't.
Sure.
So I kind of switched the perspective, and I was like, I'd rather kind of be the dealer in this case. And regardless, if I sell a box, I make a couple $100. Regardless of what's in there, I'm still making money. Obviously, I hope we're going to hit good stuff, because that gets people wanting to, get into more stuff, and obviously gives them more margin to do so. But yeah, I would say the profitability side of it, I personally like just selling the boxes sealed and not opening them for my own personal collection.
You sound like a blackjack or like a casino in a way,
because it's the house.
Yeah, you're like, because like I want the guys to win. I want them to do well, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if they do well, because I'm making money no matter what.
Right. And obviously, if you hit good stuff, I mean, it helps to promote and everything. But also, I mean, if you get skunked on a box, I'm already making my money at the start of it. So technically it doesn't affect me as much, but I mean, obviously for all my customers, a lot of the guys I know, obviously like, it's fun seeing people hit a bunch of good stuff, because it's crazy pulling that kind of stuff out of boxes.
Can you go into kind of the process of grading, how that works?
Yeah, I actually brought a couple cards. So pretty much like whenever you pull a card from a pack like this, right here. Whenever you pull a card from a pack, it's just ungraded. It's like you put it in a case, everything like that. And then, so that's worth, say, maybe that card's worth $50. But you can also have options to grade it. There's a couple different grading companies that pretty much, they have professionals look at your card. You pay a set amount of fee, maybe $50 to get your card back in 3 months and get it graded. So there's several card companies that you can send your cards to, and they have professionals look at the card, and they're pretty much ranking the card 1 through 10 based on how perfect your card is, essentially. And the closer that card is to a perfect 10, the more valuable the card is. So if that card I just showed you is maybe a $50 card, if you grade it, so the grading companies are, this is PSA, so this is a Luka rookie card. This is a PSA 10. So if you grade it, gets a PSA 10, that card I showed you earlier, obviously this is just for reference, but maybe a PSA 10, it's worth $400. So pretty much if you have a $50 card, you could sell it, or you could pay an extra $50 and grade it. Hopefully it gets a 10. It's rare to get a 10, but if it does, then you can sell it for several $100s more. So it adds a lot more profitability, because people buying cards, they like to know that the card they're buying is perfect. And it also shows like the serial number. It shows, obviously it's a Gem 10. And so whenever people buy this card, they know it's a perfect card, and they put it in this hard case. So no matter what happens, unless you just, absolutely destroy the case, it's going to be sealed in that same perfect 10 condition for the life of the card. So people really like grading their cards, because it increases the value by a ton.
Where does the market like price for cards get determined? Is that just like what people are willing to list, what people are willing to buy at? Like, how does that get determined?
A lot of it is like how people see the value of cards. Typically people check like eBay sold listings, and they'll do stuff that's ended recently. So you can go on eBay, you can pretty much check out the market to an extent of what's selling and at what price it's selling at. And there's several different avenues you can check with that too. But eBay sold listings is a pretty common place to check. And with all these cards, it's pretty much scarcity drives the market with a lot of these cards.
How does it get graded from 1 to 10? Like, what is the difference between? Is it condition? Is it?
So yeah. So for PSA for this card, it doesn't show any subcategories on what they're grading it off of. On this Beckett card, this is a different grading company right here. Sorry, and so they grade it on 4 different categories. I don't know if you can see that, but they grade it on how perfect the centering is, how perfect the edges are, how perfect the corners are, and how perfect the physical surface of the card is. And then out of those 4 categories, 1 through 10, and they grade in increments of 0.5. So like 8, 8.5, 9. Out of those 4 different categories, they average it out, and then that's the average is what the overall grade of the card gets. So BGS, their cards, a 9.5 BGS pretty much amounts to like a PSA 10, because BGS typically grades quite a bit harder than PSA does. So a PSA 10 will sell better than a BGS 9.5, but if you get a BGS 10, it's called a black label. And that means it's a perfect 10, and it has all 10 subgrades. So like a 10 centering, 10 edges, 10 surface, 10 corners. And that's going to be your most valuable card on the market by far. Like it far exceeds a PSA 10.
That's so interesting. Like my brother used to buy coins from the bank. He'd get like $1,000 in pennies, and he'd look through them to find like these mistakes. Like sometimes the pennies would have like a double Lincoln's head. Or if it was like below a certain date, and that makes me think of that same exact thing, because something as stupid as having 2 Lincoln's head, something that an average person would look at the penny and be like, oh, that's stupid. Like it's just a penny. It's worth like $100,000,
Right.
It's a very similar thing. It's crazy, but it takes about 3 months to get that back once you send it into the grading company.
Yeah, it kind of depends, because you can pay up for an expedited service. So like the economy service is what they call it, might be like, $30-$40, whatever it's going to be for your card. But if you want to do it, like get it graded and back to you in like 2 days, you're going to spend, $150-$200, to get that grade. Well, 1 day would be more like 500. But some people like doing that because like the Super Bowl coming up, if you just pull a Patrick Mahomes rookie card, and you want it back before the Super Bowl because you want to sell it because maybe you think he's going to lose or something like that, or you think he's going to lose or win, or either way with like Tom Brady also. Someone might pull that from a pack and be like, oh, shoot, I want to grade this before the Super Bowl. And then they might overnight it for $500. But even though they're spending $500, they're still going to be able to price it at a point where they're still going to be profitable, because they're getting it sold pretty much at peak hype, essentially.
Yeah.
So how much money are you making like on a month by month basis from selling this, being like the dealer? And then I guess you could also talk about and add on to that, like the own packs that you hold, like and how often like you sell those, or are you holding like for the long term?
So typically, like on a good month, because we've been doing this since last October is when we've been, so only a few months.
Yeah.
I'd say a good month will probably, because typically on all the boxes I buy, I try to have a 30 to 50% profit margin, typically on the boxes I buy. So maybe in a good month, probably $15,000, $20,000, something like that. The first 2 months we did it, it was more like $40,000 a month, but that's because I could be on every single day.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome.
But that was just the selling prices, and the profitability probably, if it was a $40,000 month, maybe $15,000 and $20,000 month, 7 or 8, something like that. But it all comes down to how much I can get on.
And how much of that is from selling the packs that you own, and how much of it is from being the dealer? I don't know what you call that exactly, doing like the draws and stuff like that.
People just call it like a breaker, pretty much like a card breaker or a box breaker is pretty much the slang term, if you will.
So what's the split? What's the split between holding your own packs and selling those and then doing the breakers?
So pretty much with like my inventory right now, I just bought a bunch of the NFL rookie class this season was really good. So I just invested pretty heavily in that. So right now I probably have 70% of my inventory I'm mostly looking to hold until next NFL or NBA season. And there's probably about 30% that I'm willing to sell now. And that's the stuff I'm going to have like on the table in front of me on the Instagram live video that people can see. And also I have like price lists and stuff like that. So if someone joins the live and is like, oh, how much is this box? I can just show them then and there, like what it's worth. So typically I try to hold some stuff, but if I'm having a really good night and people are really, really interested, I mean, I'll sell some of the stuff I'm holding too. I'm not too partial to that if I'm making money on it and still having a margin.
Can you take us through kind of a daily routine, a day in the life of Andrew for being a student, but also doing card breaks, but also buying cards,
Yeah. So I pretty much wake up. Typically I'll have class in the morning. And pretty much all throughout the day, it's a constant battle of looking for deals I can buy for cards and doing my homework pretty much. So I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I'm typically trying to scour the internet or my different avenues that I look for stuff throughout the day while also, getting my class stuff done. And then typically whenever I do my Instagram lives and stuff like that, I'll start that at night, typically throughout the day. So like if I get a bunch of business on a Saturday night, the next morning, Sunday, I have a ton of packages to ship out. Mm-hmm. So I have to focus a decent amount of my time on that and making sure I'm packing them up so they don't get damaged. Obviously, because if people want to get these cards graded, if you send it to them and they have any nicks or dings, they're not going to get a 10, and people will be obviously pretty upset about that, as anyone would. So usually I'll do some shipping throughout the day. Obviously probably buying a few boxes throughout the day. And then at night, I'm either doing homework, doing tests, working out, or going on Instagram live and trying to, drum up some business.
So how did you build up your network with like the Instagram live thing? Because from my understanding, you've always been like really good at that, especially with like sneakers. Like I've talked to a lot of people from high school and they've known you as like the guy who can like sell sneakers, not only to people online, but to people locally. And how did you build up like your network with the Instagram live for like the cards too? Because it seems to be a big part of it. It seems to be like a big part of this is not just understanding the process of having and buying, reselling cards, but also understanding networking and being able to have like essentially a customer base that comes back to you and that continually does these pack openings with you.
Right. So a lot of it with this business, it's a really saturated business. So a lot of it is who you know, and a lot of it comes down to also like pricing. So if, I might have a box that 100 other guys have, but their prices might fluctuate all over the place. So typically I try to get a buy-in. So buy my box decent, as low as I can, obviously, because it helps my return on investment. And it also helps me to be competitive in the market, because if I'm offering a lower price, in theory, it's going to draw more people to my page. So that's an aspect. There's also a big aspect of just being like repetitive and consistent and getting on your live every weekend and just having that presence every weekend, because it is a super saturated market. So, I mean, sometimes these breaks and stuff, they don't always fill. So like I might have a night where I don't sell anything, or I might have a night where I sell $15,000 in a night. So it kind of fluctuates. But a lot of it is pretty much a lot. If you get people really good cards, so like if a guy joins and he hits a $5,000, $10,000 card with me, more than likely he's going to be kind of partial to going on my page and buying stuff from me, because in theory he has, better odds with me because he's hit, better stuff. So that's an aspect. And also probably a big aspect is shipping. And pretty much the more loyalty you grow with your customers and like shipping their cards to them and shipping them safely, that can also set yourself apart in this industry, because not everybody will ship them to the same expertise as another person would.
So you have a lot of reusable reoccurring customers.
Mm-hmm. A lot of it is I'll maybe have there's a good portion of guys, several guys who might get into almost every single one I do, every single break I do. And then also obviously like getting new customers as well, because the new customers turn into recurring customers. And then that just kind of helps my customer base continue to grow in that aspect. So it's kind of a mixture. But you really need a few strong recurring customers to really start making it work typically.
And so where do you want to see this end up, kind of, because you still have what, like 2 years left of school, maybe like a year and a half?
Year and a half. Yeah.
What's kind of the 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, plan?
So kind of how I've been thinking of it is, because I kind of started this and I was like, oh, this is fun. I can make, $1,000 in a weekend. Like, this is awesome. And then I've been kind of thinking about it. I was like, well, maybe, I could turn this into like a full-time gig, because whenever I was on breaks, like Christmas break, I mean, I was, obviously being able to be on live almost every night. And like, it was pretty incredible. And I was like, well, I mean, after I graduate, when I can focus all my time just on this and I don't have any, homework and stuff, I was like, well, maybe this could be like a full-time type of gig. So the big part of it pretty much is, so we had our initial investment, how we started the business. And then after that, it's pretty much flipping profit on profit. And so pretty much the growth is going to depend on how much I can sell, pretty much in the cash flow that I can keep reinvesting into my business. I'd like to grow it to about $100,000 to $150,000 valuation by this summer would be a good goal. And like I think over $100,000 in sales this year, at least,
Sure.
by the end of the year, in profit, 40% margin or 50% margin. I think that'd be a kind of a cool goal, because I mean, just in November, December alone last year, we sold around 80 grand plus. Obviously not all profit, but so I think that's attainable, depending on, obviously it all comes down to how much time I can allocate to it.
And is this growing, the process of getting bigger and increasing your sales, does that really come down to the customers, or does it come down to like you having more packs?
It's kind of a combination of both, because I can get as many, like I want a ton of customers, but yeah, ultimately they kind of go hand in hand, because if I don't have enough boxes and new inventory that people are interested in opening, then obviously I'm going to lose out on potential customers, because if they join my live and they're looking for a certain type of basketball box and I don't have that in my inventory, there's a customer I just lost right there. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of go hand in hand, because you need your customers to buy more product, and you need to continue to have more product to keep your customers there. So it kind of goes both ways.
And do you have any strategies for like focusing on getting more customers, or is that something that just comes through referrals?
A lot of it kind of comes through referrals, and you can also, if you hit really big cards and stuff, you can promote your posts on Instagram. So if you hit, like I hit like a $10,000 Zion Williamson card, and obviously I promoted that a lot, because people see that and they're like, oh man, if he pulled that, I mean, he's pretty serious. And like, if I pull that and I actually send it to the guy and I don't just delete my account and pocket the card, it also builds some credibility in that aspect too. Cause they're like, well, even if he hits a $10,000 plus card, he's actually gonna, send me my card and not steal it from me.
Yeah. That's, is there a lot of that in the industry?
There's a handful of it. There's a handful of it in as like a breaker, because if you hit, you hit a $15,000 card, it can be pretty appealing for someone. Like I haven't been, obviously it's not worth ruining my business over, but I have had people that, in the industry that I know of who, hit a $15,000-$20,000 life-changing card, and they delete their Instagram page and they just ghost the person. And then, then they're just gone. And then the person who got that, I mean, they can't really do much about it, which is really too bad.
So, man, go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
What incentives? This might be what you're trying to ask too, Josh. What incentives do you have to like still stay in school? Because like Josh and I, we have our reasons for continuing to get our degree while we like have side businesses. But like for you, with something so successful, with the projection that you have, like what are your incentives for it?
You read my mind. That's exactly what I'm
my main incentive with all of this is, because since it is, I mean, it could be a full-time business, but since it's been so profitable also as a side, like a side business, I'd still like to get my degree because, if 5 years down the road, the card business, kind of goes out and it's not really the fad thing anymore. It's not as profitable. I'm obviously going to want something to fall back on. Or also, even if if it's making me money and it's making me money on the weekends, just extra money, I could still work, my career type job and do this on the side and still just have enough extra income to offset, obviously, the living expenses or whatever expenses I might have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally understand that, dude. It's been interesting for me, like owning a detailing business throughout this year, because as I'm starting to get closer to my graduation and starting to realize like, oh, life's going to hit me and I'm going to actually get like a real job. Right. And like, I feel like I've neglected the business in a certain sense, like last semester, just focusing on like school and stuff like that.
Right.
But as I get closer to graduation, I start to realize more and more that like everything else besides this is not like real right now, because this is the thing that makes me money. Like right now it's real and I know I can scale it, so it's something that I've started to realize, like, I really want to spend more time on growing because it's possible and it is real. We have like a real customer base.
Right.
But no, I totally understand where your thought process is there by like having something to fall back on in case this falls out. But does that mean like you think that the card industry won't necessarily be as relevant in the next like 5 years?
I think it could honestly go either way. A lot of like the card industry used to be super popular like 10, 15 years ago. I mean, a lot of like, probably kids our age, whenever we were younger, we just bought boxes, or every once in a while, you open stuff just for fun, or some people did, some people didn't. But I think the last time the card market kind of went under, but kind of, under the radar, was Panini and all these companies. There was Panini, Upper Deck, Topps, Fleer, all these companies. I think they started producing so many cards. The rarity aspect and the scarcity aspect of it kind of drove the card market to non-existent pretty much again, because there was just so much in production. Obviously a card's not, I mean, if there's a card and there's only 100 of them in the world, it's going to be a lot more rare than if there's 20,000 of that same card. You know what I'm saying? So I think they kind of killed the market last time. So I think it will kind of depend on how Panini is like the main company now. A lot of those other companies are either out of business or they're just not really, competitive with Panini. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to come down to Panini's production and how they continue to come out with new lines of cards, and how they juggle that with still keeping it scarce so people are still interested in the reselling aspect. So I think that's going to come down to that. I think Panini is going to kind of make that decision on the card market.
That's like the same issue with like shoes, right? It's like understanding if Yeezy is going to come out and make 1 million pairs of this certain pair, because that's just going to kill the resale market.
Right, right. And that's, we have seen that. Yeah, you're exactly right. Like on Yeezys, I mean, when you ever used to, get a pair of Yeezys, maybe, a few years ago, it might sell for $600, or like, the original ones that came out, maybe $1,000. But now, I mean, if you release 1 million pairs and you release 10 different colorways that are all like one shade of white different, I mean, people just lose interest on it.
Yeah.
That's tough, man. Like, especially it's not as tough for someone that's just doing it like as a side gig, but if that's like your full-time thing, like you're saying, if you drop out of school and like you're like really going to pursue this full time, unless you can really just think about it in a way that like, there's certain ways to think about businesses that it's like, no matter which direction it turns, no matter how much stock there is, like you could still make a business out of it. Like there's no doubt in my mind that someone can do that. Just by being creative, but that's hard for someone. I'm sure that it's just like their full-time thing. They dropped out of school, don't really have any fallback. And then all of a sudden the brand that's producing these cards comes out and says, well, we're going to 10X our production levels.
Right.
And it's like, well, what does that do for my inventory,
Right. Yeah. So that's obviously a big issue. And I mean, you obviously, I don't know if you guys have friends who have done this, but I've also had friends who do that. Like whenever, the housing market's really strong, for instance, there's a lot of kids who drop out of school to, get their real estate license and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, it's great. And the money's awesome. And if you can keep that up, that's great. Or get into rentals even. That's an awesome business. But it can be pretty risky because, if the housing market goes under, then you don't have a degree to fall back on. And obviously it's not going to be the same as when it's, at its peak performance. And it's similar with cards. right now it's at its peak performance, but 5 years down the road, I don't necessarily want to be relying on it completely. Not that I'm saying I think it's going to go under, but if it does, I want to have something I can fall back on.
And just like the housing market, though, there's unique and creative strategies that you can do to withstand yourself and support yourself financially during those tough times.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know what that looks like with inside of the card industry, if there is even a way. I'm sure there is, but like through real estate, rather than just buying and selling, buying and flipping, instead by renting out and owning rental properties and then collecting that.
Right.
Like those are kind of unique ways to still be within real estate, yet profit even off of like a recession.
Right. So like for cards, I haven't really hit that point yet. So I'm not quite sure how that'll all shake out. So that's also kind of why it is a risk. I mean, holding inventory, because you're hoping these boxes appreciate, but you also got to do your research and figure out which ones are gonna jump up and which ones are gonna be pretty much non-existent in the next few years or even next few months.
Sure. And Andrew, I know that you go to the gym fairly often, right? How important is that like been with your college and throughout high school, and also like with managing like your business as well?
So yeah, I'll typically try to go to the gym 5-6 times a week, maybe. Just kind of depends on my week. A lot of the times I use it as a stress relief, because I mean, obviously whenever you're going to school full time and you're also trying to pretty much own your own full-time business as well, I mean, there are a lot of aspects of it that are extremely stressful. So I think either like, running, working out, just doing something for a little bit of stress relief and just to kind of get your mind off the business side of everything or school side of everything, I think it can be really beneficial, obviously, for anyone.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's been the biggest thing for me, honestly. Like I always say that I work out for my business, because I always feel like, especially like with diet too, like with eating healthy and with working out, like it gives me a competitive advantage in a sense with my business and with my schoolwork.
Absolutely.
A lot of the times if you're just shoving shit in your mouth and you're eating like crap and you're not working out, like, dude, I feel like I'm tired, It's like, how do I produce in the business and schoolwork whenever I feel so bad? So I'm on board with that, man.
Yeah. I agree with you 100% on that aspect of it.
So what tips do you have for someone that's like looking to get started with like card selling? Like they see this massive increase in the card industry and in popularity here. And if this is something that like a high schooler or like a college student like wants to get into, what tips do you have for someone that's starting out?
I would say for an individual starting out, probably your best bet is just scouring your local Walmart, scouring your local Targets, trying to figure out whenever your card vendors are going to come to the store and try to hit like a big restock. Because if you hit a really big restock, it kind of gives you like, that big nest egg, that starting point that you can start. It's like, okay, now I have $1,000 in profit. If I lose this, I'm not really out anything, but if I can flip this into more profit, that's kind of how you're going to start that snowball effect. So probably scouring your local Walmarts and stuff like that is probably your easiest way to start it. Because if you go to a Walmart, there's nothing there. I mean, you're not out anything. You're not buying anything. There's no risk. But if you do hit stuff, I mean, you're going to 3 times your money probably in 24 hours, 48 hours at most. Like you could sell it on Facebook Marketplace, sell it to guys like me. So that's probably the easiest way to get started, because I mean, the most you're risking is a wasted trip to Walmart. So it's a pretty easy way to get into the industry.
Is there any people that like you would recommend watching like on YouTube or social media that are like great for beginners?
There's other breaking businesses that are actually bigger than me that I personally watch also. There's businesses that pretty much do the same thing as me. There's one is Pole Wax, Pole Kings. My business name Sweet Rips is what my name is on Instagram. So honestly, just watching the bigger guys and seeing how they go about their business and pretty much the inventory they have and the prices they have, and pretty much seeing that and figure out how you can do it better and how you can get better prices, lower prices than them, and be competitive. Even if you don't have, $1 million in inventory like they do, still you can still be competitive in aspects of it and still make money for yourself.
And then the network side of things, do you think this is something that like you need to have a social media for? to grow your business like long term and really connect with your like customers?
Yeah. So I think honestly, social media is a huge aspect of it. Because for a lot of these people, if they hit a huge card on my stream, this is also a big incentive to joining these Instagram lives. If there's 20 people watching my live and you hit a huge, $10,000 card, that card's only worth what someone's going to pay for it. So if it's worth $10,000, it's great. But if you can't find a buyer for $10,000, then you're hosed. Like it's just another card. So that's also a big incentive to opening it through these big Instagram pages, because if you hit that huge card, you might have a buyer on site. There might be someone in the comments that say, hey, I'll send you $5,000 right now for this card. And obviously it might be worth a little more on the market, but if you can liquidate it in a minute, obviously that's not a bad deal either.
Sure. Yeah, that's great, man. Well, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. Do you have any like closing thoughts that you'd like to share?
Honestly, I would just say for anyone who's new and wanting to get into this industry, just really do your research before getting into it. And don't jump in and just buy a bunch of random stuff just to buy it. Really like have a purpose to what you're buying and see a long-term investment potential in the products that you're trying to acquire.
Great. And where can people find you like on social media?
So my social media account, my Instagram account is sweet.rips_. And my logo is a sucker. It's a sucker with an S on it. So you'll see me and see my page on there.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for hopping on with us today, Andrew.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Hope to be on here again soon.
Yeah, dude.